Yeah, I can see some responses coming in the chat. Lots of threes. Great. Right. So, I mean, broadly, I think I've made my point, right? These are popular problems, very, very prevalent in the NGO sector. And we notice this too through our fractional CXO engagements, as which is one of the things we do as Tech for Dev, right? And we kind of dived into it a little bit deeper and broke the challenges up. And so broadly into what I see as three buckets, right? That's how I like to classify it. And so let me just take you through those three. This should give you a sense of what we're aiming to solve for with Dalgo, right? So the first thing is the bucket that I like to call your primary functional requirements, right? Or primary functional challenges that an NGO faces. It all starts with visualization. NGOs want to be able to see that complete picture of their impact. But if they're collecting data from multiple sources, as many of you might be, right, then what ends up happening is maybe if you're using Glyphic, your Glyphic data is in one place. If you're using Kobo Toolbox, your Kobo Toolbox data is in one place. Google Forms data will go to Google Sheets and be populated separately. So all of it is siloed, and largely all of this is being collected and just being put together quarterly for a report, right? And to bring it together, there's often time-consuming, possibly, time-consuming, sometimes inaccurate data merging and transformation, which we don't tend to have a log on how to do. And so when there are transitions in the organization, this becomes tough to maintain. And there's also problems of data accessibility, right? Given that you have this visualization in separate places, you're struggling to bring the data together. Most often, the only people who see any data are your funders or your top level management, when in fact, as a nonprofit striving to make impact, it's helpful for you to allow for data accessibility at every level of your organization. So even your field team can be informed by data and kind of work better and um, just have more better informed operations, right? So that's the first bucket, right? These are your primary challenges that everyone faces and is trying to solve currently, so long as they have some sort of digital data collection, and even more so possibly if they're still on pen and paper. The second bucket is kind of what I like to think of as secondary challenges and need for assurance, right? This is not something an NGO or NGOs popularly prioritize, but it is something that they are concerned about, and as they should be, right? Am I getting the data that I want to get, right? What is the quality of my data? Am I getting all of the information that I need? Is that information recent? Is it consistent? Is it meeting the standards that I wanted to meet? Data governance and observability is to say that I have a lot of data, but can I easily bring someone in and explain to them, this is my data, this is how it's laid out, and this is where everything lies. These are the important indicators, etc. Right? And lastly, and most importantly, data privacy. Since all of us work in social impact, it's kind of essential for us to protect personally identifiable information of our beneficiaries, if we're working direct with beneficiaries. And so this is the second bucket of challenges that we kind of see as we dive deeper into the kind of data problems that NGOs face. And the third bucket is what I like to call challenges we face while solutioning for the former two buckets, right? If you want to solve for the six things I've kind of discussed before, then you need data engineers, and this is a popularly scarce resource in the social impact space because they're expensive, they're hard to find, they're difficult to retain, and NGOs traditionally will go or have one of two options, right? One is, and which we see that NGOs do often, is to build a custom data pipeline from a local vendor. This is not only expensive to build and time consuming, it's also costly for you to maintain. And often, since it's a one time custom solution, right? It's generally not going to give you the kind of quality that you want, right? So your second option then becomes, can we take up a commercial tool, right? Which has which is at running at global standards and performing all of those functions and solving for all of those challenges very well and consistently. But the problem with that becomes that commercial tools are expensive. They don't meet non-profit budgets, right? And even if a non-profit does have a budget to take up a commercial tool, um, at the end of the day, that tool is not targeted towards non-profits. It's targeted towards for-profit organizations. And so often you won't find connectors for you to pull data from the sources that a non-profit uses, because those are designed to cater to for-profit data sources, right? And similarly, there's a lack of, additionally, there's a lack of support, which is something in our experience we've noticed that that's something nonprofits need when they're working with tech and data, right? Lots of support. And so this is kind of the broad expanse of challenges that Dalgo is trying to address. Dalgo is an open source data platform that essentially stitches together a bunch of other open source tools and gives it to you on a UI and enables you to set up and automate everything, automate your data pipeline, and then we will give you support, we'll maintain the infrastructure, and all you need to do is watch your data come in and learn from it, right? And with that, I'm going to just take a pause for 5 seconds and check with my team if there's anything important I should be addressing right now.
I think you're good, and there's nothing in the chat, no questions in the chat.
Great. Okay, so I'll go ahead. So now coming to how the platform works, right? So in its current form, this is what the platform does. You're able to automate your data pipeline with the platform. And once you've done that, you have ready tables that can go wherever you need them to go. So what does that mean? That means that you could have n number of sources, right? Our platform currently caters to over 300 data sources that you can pull data from, right? So you can ingest the data and store it in one common location. So the common location that you're storing it in is a warehouse, right? A data warehouse. So once you have all of these raw tables that have come in from your various sources, what you do is then you transform it in the way you want, right? So transformation could be something as simple as renaming columns, removing duplicate rows. It could also mean merging the different data sets. It could also mean kind of conducting more complicated statistical analysis, whatever you need, right? So all of it, you set up all of your transformations, and once you've done that, all of this data is transformed, and what you get are ready, finished tables, exactly the way you want them, right? Once you have ready, finished tables, you can use these tables for anything. The most common thing nonprofits will use their ready data for is visualization. Beyond that, nonprofits may have an app that they're using. So some of this data may feed back into the app. They may be using a CRM like Frappe. So then the data could feed back into the CRM system to give you stats on each person or case that you're tracking. Or you could even use it for something like machine learning, wherein, so for example, for folks that are using Glyphic and leveraging LLMs, we're looking at how to leverage the data that's being generated by the chatbot to inform an LLM. Also things like you could just run predictive analysis and other things like that, right? So that's broadly the idea. And to go into slightly more detail for the tech partners that are here, since you all represent a significant fraction of the attendees, I'll just say that what we're doing with Dalgo is we're stitching together Airbyte for ingestion, right, which is an open source tool, DBT for data transformation, Prefect for orchestration, which is basically to tell Airbyte and DBT when to run the ingestion and transformation. And we provide Superset embedded in the platform for visualization. If you don't use Superset, you can always still send the tables to whichever visualization tool you're using. When we come to the warehouse, currently we offer BigQuery and Postgres as options for you to use as a warehouse. And this, the NGO will host themselves so that they own their own data, and we don't have to kind of get into data privacy security issues, right? The rest, which is to say Airbyte, Prefect, DBT, Superset, all of that is hosted by us and availed as SaaS by the NGOs. Yeah. So with that, I'm going to just stop sharing my screen, and I'd like to just quickly take you through the platform so you get a sense of what a setup pipeline looks like. So let me just find it. 1 second. Great. So here we are. So this is the platform essentially. I hope all of you can see my screen.
Yeah, it's visible now.
Thanks, Ishan. So this is the platform. What you can see over here broadly is 2 data pipelines have been set up, right? In context of what I've just explained to you in terms of how the platform works, right? Your step 1 on the platform would be to set up your warehouse. Over here, you can see that there's a Postgres warehouse that's been set up, right? Step 2 would be to set up your sources. So over here, you can see we have Google Sheets as a source. So we have 2 Google Sheets as 2 separate sources, right? And step 3 is for you to simply connect your sources to your warehouse. So that's what we're doing over here, connecting source 1 to the warehouse, connecting source 2 to the warehouse. So this is broadly covering this piece. Yeah, from ingestion, all of these sources are now in a warehouse. Following this, what we do is the transform piece. Setting up your transformation, it looks very minimalistic over here, but this is actually the most significant part of work that the platform that goes into setting up your instance for you. And that goes into kind of also adding value for you, I would say. So over here, all you're seeing is a little bit essentially the DBT repo, right? Just a link to the DBT repo. But what's behind it is some code, SQL code, that's essentially doing all of the things that I mentioned we do in transformation, right? So it's renaming columns, transforming strings to numerical values or date values, merging data, merging the 2 data sets, pulling out only the data that we want to see instead of pulling out everything. So that's broadly what it does. And once you've set up that on DBT over here, you just need to put in the link to that and you can set it up. And then you can run whatever functions, right? So if you set up some test to say, to test out, right? If everything's working fine, you can run a DBT test. Else you can just run the DBT function or any of these functions. And the last piece is the piece on automation, which is orchestration here, which is when you say when you want your ingestion and or transformation to happen, right? So over here, it's as simple as you entering the name of your pipeline, you pick the connections that you want to sync, you say whether you want to transform the data or not, you say whether you want it weekly or daily, you set up the time at which you want it to happen, and then you would click save, right? And that sets up a pipeline. Once you've done this, this is where you come. And as you can see every time a pipeline has run, you'll see it over here, right? And if you want more information, so for example, so that the aim, of course, is for you to always see green lines here. But if something fails, you will see a red line here. And if something like your DBT test fails, right, which means that everything is running as it should be, but maybe you've changed something in the back, so your tests are now not matching, right? You're expecting to see maybe 5 schools, but you're seeing 6 schools. So then you would see an orange line there. And then essentially, if you see an orange or a red line, you can go ahead, check the logs. It'll take you here back to the orchestrate page, and you can see a history of everything that's run in more detail. And you can identify maybe what the problem is. Yeah. Once all of this is set up, you have a running pipeline. If you are using Superset on our platform, right? Like I said, Superset is optional. So if you're using Superset on our platform, then you can see your analysis over here, right? So for example, for these data sets, this is the analysis. I can see some key stats, I can put in filters. So broadly, the idea behind this data set is that there are a bunch of NGOs. There's an organization that's handling many NGOs. 2 to 3 NGOs are handled by one single point of contact. And I want to see how the NGOs are doing on certain indicators, right? So this is for a health program. And I also want to see how the different coordinators are doing, right? So single point of contact A, single point of contact B, C. So that's broadly how this has been designed. And so I can see all of the information directly here. So if something looks fishy again, I can go back into the platform and look at how things go. And the last thing to mention here is that you can also add folks to the platform, right? So over here, you see Shan, me, and Rohit are there. If I want to add someone else, I can. So for example, you should be able to see the person. Yeah. So you can collaborate on the platform as well. Two more things I kind of want to add at this platform overview stage, right? So the first thing is maybe to address some thoughts that might be with you all on why Superset and why aren't we selecting any other platform, right? So we chose to go with Superset because based on all of the proof of concepts we did, and on our experience with NGOs at large, we understood that Superset caters to a lot of the needs that NGOs have. It enables a bunch of things for you, right? So it's at that comfortable middle ground wherein it can be as simple as drag and drop, or you could even write some SQL code in it and do more complicated things. It also allows, I think, at least to me, the most unique feature of it is that it allows for role-based role-level security, right? So anyone using the platform is obviously at an MNE, at a central MNE level, right? So you'd want them to be able to see everything. Like I can see everything over here, right? I have all of the options, I have all of the filters. I can pick anyone I want, and I can see data for all of my coordinators, right? All of my single points of contact. But if I wanted, ideally what we want is that we've designed a dashboard. Now we share this with everyone in the organization, and my field team comes in and they only see the data that they're supposed to see, right? And for me to not have to do too much work for that to be possible. So that Superset makes that also possible for you. So let me just share my screen again. So here we go. So now if assume I'm a field team member, can you see the red browser?
Yes, Nair, we can see that.
So if I'm a field team member, I'll just get a link to the Superset dashboard direct, right? Because field team members aren't going to be using Dalgo. Field team members will just be using visualization. It's only a central MNE or tech team or IT team that will be using Dalgo. So a field team member will just get a link to the dashboard. They'll come in here, they'll sign in with Google, and then they'll just be able to see the dashboard. So over here, as this ID is geared to be a field team member who is the single point of contact A, right? So he can, this person, which is me essentially, I can now only see the data for my NGOs and the work that I've done, right? And I think this is kind of easily the most useful thing for NGOs and the most popular need for NGOs. Beyond this, Superset does a bunch of different things. It has a very wide variety of visualizations that are possible to be created. This is definitely not the expanse of it that you're seeing on the screen now. And you can also do things like set up email notifications on a schedule every day or every week, or however often you want. Yeah. And that's broadly the platform. Again, I'm just going to wait to see if anyone has any questions or if I should be addressing anything right now. Rohit, Ishan,
so there have been lots of questions in the chat, and I think we've addressed all of them. But in case there are any that we missed, people can take this opportunity to speak up. Okay, here's a question from Parveen. Can you show how to transform data? I think you're going to get to some little DBT thing. If not, then we can talk through it. Were you going to show something?
No, so I mean, the extent of what I was going to show is the code that Ishan wrote for that dummy data set, and to explain what that code did. Beyond
Sure,
that,
so we'll get to that.
yeah, we can address that later if we have time, or on a separate
Okay.
call with Parveen. Yeah.
And then Sheetal has a question that if various things are hosted by us, then how do we ensure data privacy? So the easy answer, which doesn't address PII necessarily, is that the data is still sitting in the client's warehouse. And yes, for clients who are small and don't want to run their own warehouse, yes, we can manage a warehouse for you. But in general, the warehouse will sit at your end. So the data sources are at your end and the destination is at your end. And the data flows through our system, but it isn't stored there. And that's the extent of the answer that I have to that.
Great. Okay. Anything else, or should I just go ahead? I have a little bit more, maybe 5 minutes more of stuff to cover, and then we can go fully into questions. Yeah. Great. Are we back to Canva?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So just want to take you through some use cases that we're currently working on with Dalgo, right? So the first one is with Sneha. So essentially, Sneha has north of 60 forms and over 4.5 lakh rows of data, all coming in through ComCare for their antenatal care programs. And they were facing problems, one, essentially in the connection failing and them being unable to see all of this information in an understandable fashion for all of the people, which is to say from top management all the way down to the field level, right? For everyone to use and learn from the data. So what we kind of made possible was we built, first of all, so Airbyte didn't have a connector to ComCare, so we built that out. And then we used Dalgo to connect all of this data from all of these forms for Sneha, transform it into usable ready tables, and we brought all of that into Superset. And this, I think, has helped quite a bit with their antenatal programs, and now we're going to do this for other programs as well. So just a little snapshot of kind of what their embedded Superset looks like. The second use case is with the Apprentice project. So the Apprentice project uses Glyphic, which is Tech4Dev's chatbot design platform, and is also using Frappe now as a central location to store all student data, right? So they've got chatbot data and they've got enrollment data from these two sources. Both of these are being run through Dalgo, merged, transformed, and then being fed first back into Frappe. So now all of the student data has little stats on it based on the child's engagement with the chatbot. It's also thrown into Google Data Studio. So the Apprentice project is not using Superset, but they're still able to visualize all of their data on Looker Studio. And in the future, given that the Apprentice project is one of the organizations that's dealing with large language models on their chatbot, we're looking at using all of this data towards some amount of machine learning AI. So this would be to classify students into different levels, then be able to suggest, possibly then be able to suggest the best content for different children, right, based on demographic cuts, and then possibly even using the chatbot information to build a loop back into the LLM and improve the quality of the chats, right, that are going on right now. So that's the Apprentice project's use case. And lastly, we have we have Lender Hand India, and Lender Hand India is a fairly large organization that works across multiple states, right? And they also collect data from many different sources. So they have an app, and all of that data is stored in MySQL. They also collect data using Kobo Toolbox and Google Sheets. And what we're trying to do for them with Dalgo is bring all of that into one place, merge and transform that data, and as a result of that, produce separate dashboards per state for each state to see how they're doing on vocational education, which is what Lender Hand India focuses on. And for Lender Hand India to also see at a central level how they're doing across states, right? And those are broadly 3 use cases. And if I had to kind of group them, the first one is, hey, we have a lot of data. We have source of data that we are unable to connect successfully and visualize. The second one is more around we want to do we have an end user application or a CRM, right? In Frappe, we have a chatbot, we have LLMs, all of these different things, and we want to be able to use our data effectively across these 3. So how do we do that? And with Lahi, it is, hey, we have data from many different sources for a very large program, and we want to be able to make sense of it for every stakeholder across every region. So those were a few use cases, but these are all of the almost all of the NGOs that all of the organizations that we work with. So just want to highlight over here that, I mean, these are all of the NGOs. Goalkeep is our implementation partner. They help us, they understand our infrastructure. They work very well with NGOs who work with data in building a data culture. And so what they do is they'll engage with you to set everything up. And then Dalgo only provides the infrastructure. And I'll talk more about this later. And Agency Fund is our knowledge partner. They're always teaching us new and interesting things that we could do, should do, and kind of really helping us shape the direction for the product. Yeah. All right. So we're nearing the end. So where do we go from here? So initially, I had listed down some challenges, and with regard to those challenges, you'll notice that in its current form, Dalgo is catering to the first bucket of challenges, right? Which is just automating your data pipeline. But what it's not doing now is catering to data quality, data governance, but all of that is on the roadmap, and we're working on it. And I just wanted to take you all through what features we have, right, coming up. So the first one is monitoring Superset, right? So if you're availing or if you're using Superset, right, in the platform, then what we're going to make possible is for you to then see how much people are accessing your dashboard, right? Because if you've put in the effort and the money and the time into developing a strong data pipeline with intelligent visualization, then you want to see now how much are folks using it, right? Which dashboards pages are used the most, which type of user, right? Which user role is using the dashboard the most? Is it my field team? Is it my M&E team? Who is it? So that's the first thing we're working on. And I mean, I've tried to arrange this in a broadly sequential order, but this will change based on what urgent NGO needs are, right? But monitoring Superset is something we're working actively on. Second is a data quality tool integration, right? So this will enable you to then begin to check whether your data is accurate, complete, consistent, timely, unique, valid. Then AI and ML capabilities. This is kind of always running in the background for us. So we're working on this, given that we have some use cases for it already. So all of the things I mentioned for TAP, essentially that, right? Interesting thing is that we might be doing is for you to also start handling qualitative data using Dalgo, right? So that's something we're thinking about. Then the fourth thing that's kind of a feature that we're thinking of doing is giving you a UI for data transformation, right? So where Praveen, I think that was Praveen, right? Asked about, can you show us how you do the DBT transformation? Don't know how to write SQL, right? Which is what you need to be able to do to use DBT. So then that makes you either, reliant on someone else to do that for you, or for you to have people learn how to do this within the organization. And so we're kind of thinking of making it possible for you to do things like basic joins or merges, deduplication, column renaming, all on the UI instead of with code. And lastly, we have data governance tool integration, which will enable you to see that more metadata, right? Like, so data describing your data, right? Which will enable people to read, understand it easily, navigate through it easily. And this is broadly what we have on the roadmap. I'm sure there are questions around this and hopefully a lot of excitement around this. And we kind of want to use that to help inform what we do next. So I'm going to throw up another poll. You should see it on your screen now. If someone could let me know that you all can see it.
Yeah, we can see it, Nair.
Great. So essentially, you'll be able to see around 8 items. Each item which will have either a C or an F written next to it. C is a current feature, F is a future feature, and just broadly just want you all to mark yes or no on which features are most useful for you, right? You could mark all of them, but it's also helpful if you don't.
Sorry, what is monitoring superset?
Monitoring superset is the first thing you see. If you can still see the deck also, is the first
Oh,
thing.
there we are. Okay.
Yeah.
Analytics on usage of, okay. So who in the organization is using the superset?
Yeah. Who is using,
okay.
how much is something, a particular page being used, things like that. I'll wait for another minute. It would be great if everyone can put their inputs in.
Okay, there's while people are doing that in the chat, there's a question about whether superset can generate PDFs. And I confidently said yes. Let me double check that. So I have some
you can definitely
scheduled
download
reports
it
in my mailbox.
Yeah.
I know, right? You can download, but for the schedule thing, now how do I get out of this window? One second.
Rohit, I can confirm that for you. It does do.
It does, right? Yes.
Yeah. It's just that the only downer is typically dashboards are meant to be viewed and not for download. So you might have to customize your dashboards to be more simplistic so that they come out nicer on a PDF. So there's a level of effort that's involved in making it work on a PDF report than just visually on a HTML, because at the back end, you're just using a PDF of a web page. That's essentially
of a live thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. We have 22, about 50% of people have responded. So I'm just going to end the poll, share the results for you all to get a quick look. So we'll use this in some way or another to inform how we move forward. You should be able to see the results now. So it seems like almost everything is important. The monitoring of superset doesn't seem to be getting as much importance as the rest. Yeah. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing those results and I'm going to just move into the last part of this presentation, which is how do you engage with us, right? And broadly, if you were to begin using Dalgo, then this would be how it goes. First, you would need to be onboarded. Onboarding takes anywhere between 1 to 3 months, depending on kind of what your data situation is, right? And what your data use case is. It would cover things like us having a needs assessment, building connectors if required, setting up your transformations, setting up visualization and training and handover. Then there would just be ongoing platform usage, right? Which just works as software as a service. And this covers ingestion, transformation, orchestration, what I've shown you already, visualization, which could be superset or whatever else you want. And our continuous support via Discord, and email and webinars like this, right? And then if there are any significant changes that you want to make, then you can always consult with us and have those changes made. But if it's anything small, generally it should be covered through ongoing support. Yeah. And this is broadly how you all would engage with Dalgo if you are interested to use it for your nonprofit. And then we come to how is this priced, right? So if you use the basic SaaS platform, which is just ingestion, transformation, and orchestration, it's 2 lakh. Oh, this is slightly incorrect. It should say 2,04,000 per annum, which works out to about 17,000 rupees per month. And if you use Superset as well, then it works out to 2,52,000 per annum, which works out to 21,000 rupees per month. Besides that, consulting is charged at 2,500 rupees per hour. And the number of hours of consulting, depending on whether it's onboarding or ad hoc consulting, and on what the scope of the project is, that could vary. And that's broadly our engagement model. More details on this you can find on our website, and you can definitely reach out to us if you want to know more. And that's everything from me. This is our website, dalgo.in. You can visit it to get more information on the product. And of course, this webinar should ideally have given you everything you need. But if you just want a landing page to go to, you can go there. It also has a link to our documentation there. So if you want to go through our documentation, you can see it through the website. Or you can always email us at support@dalgo.in. That's everything from me for today. Thank you very much. If we have questions, we can jump into those now. So I'm guessing Rohit's had an eye on those, and you can pick out which ones you want to address and who should address.
Thank you, Abhishek. I think we've answered a lot of these. There was one from Parveen, which I haven't responded to yet, which says handling qualitative data with it. And this was at the same time that you were talking about like a chatbot integration. So I think that's what he was talking about. Why don't you tell them, Nair, about that potential feature where an LLM reads data and creates like an end of month report?
Right. No, so Parveen, are you referring to chatbot, or are you referring to what I showed on the feature roadmap under?
I think I was seeing that data roadmap, and handling qualitative data is great things to have. Like, it's something that most platforms are generally don't cater, or even if they do, if we tell them, it's not like analyzed or made sense properly.
Gotcha. So I can kind of give you an overview of where the thought has come from. And then if there are details that I've missed out on, Vinod can elaborate. So broadly, the idea is that one of the NGOs we work with, I think it's Shri or Stir, what they've been doing is they collect a lot of qualitative responses from their beneficiaries, and they want a summary of sorts, right, of that qualitative information, or they want to know which kind, like what are the trends across that qualitative information. So what they've been doing now is taking all of that qualitative information, dumping it into ChatGPT and asking ChatGPT for a summary, right? And ChatGPT does a great job of that, being able to give you a summary and tell you trends across that information. And so what we want to be able to do, I mean, that's where the thought comes from, is for us to be able to enable that for you within the platform. So you feed all of that qualitative information through Dalgo, and it gives you a summary that you can populate on your dashboard or something else. So that's how we're thinking about it. Vinod, have I missed anything?
No, you have it right, Abhishek.
Okay. Great. Anything else, Rohit? I'm going through the chatbot. Also, if anyone has questions, please feel free to just unmute and ask.
The chat looks good. I think we covered a lot of them.
Hi, I'm Chavi from Magic Bus. So, adding on to what you said regarding qualitative data analysis, so there's another software called NVivo where you do coding and subcoding, and then it segregates your data, relevant to that particular codes or subcodes, and then you can always extract data in the form of Excel document. So how is your platform different when we compare it with NVivo extracted summary report?
So I can take that. Chavi, to begin, our platform doesn't do that right now. It doesn't deal with qualitative information at the moment. What we were discussing with Praveen is that that's on the, it's kind of on the roadmap for something we want to be able to do. So helpful to know that something like NVivo exists, and we're going to look that up. And yeah, maybe if we can integrate that, we will.
I think just to add that NVivo also require your work towards like coding them, reading them, and coding them. Meanwhile, what I can hear you saying before that is just like dumping the data in ChatGPT and just finding the trends and not like go into deeper into it. So these are like two different needs that can be catered. So I'm sure like NVivo can do that as well, but I'm not very sure. But what I've seen last time, you have to code them manually, and if you have like large data sets in qualitative data, then it's a work.
Yeah. Thanks, Praveen. Parveen, sorry.
And sorry, is that ENVIVO? I'm trying to Google it.
NVIVO. NVIVO.
Got it. I'll find it. Thank you. Good job.
Great. Anyone else? Okay. Maybe since, yeah, go ahead. In the meantime, I may throw up another poll.
Another question popped up my head. So since in Magic Bus, we already have a data repository system wherein
you wouldn't use that feature of ours. So I would say that the value definitely increases when you're trying to pull in and then clean and merge different data sources, and they come in at different times, with different levels of accuracy, etc., like that. And as far as dashboarding and reporting is concerned, we don't have any features for automatically generating any dashboard or report. Those have to be, built.
yeah, I understand that the data structure has to be built upon for the creation of dashboards.
Yeah.
But can I share one hurdle that we are facing within our organization?
Absolutely.
So one of the roadblocker that we are facing is that there are multiple, indicators for which the data is required. So the essential indicators are already in existence on that platform, but there are other indicators for which we ask for manual data from our field team, because adding those indicators will somewhere add to the work burden on the field team. So we are finding it difficult to add too many indicators in our data repository platform. So any suggestion on that? Maybe, you know, a collaboration might be helpful, or some suggestions that we can build on our data repository system so that.
Yeah, I think we can definitely have a conversation about this. I don't want to respond because I'm not very clear yet on what you mean by the indicators and what how the field team is entering them, and you know, who looks at them. But we can absolutely have a conversation about this. I'll just, for the general audience, I'll say that if the struggle is that in order to increase your you know, program intelligence, you need to pull in different data sources. So in addition to one thing, you also need to do another thing, and it doesn't have to be a lot. It just has to be, you know, you've got more inputs coming in, another survey, another form, another whatever. Then merging them all and getting unified intelligence, that is the kind of thing that we can do.
No, thank you.
Just to add on one more bit to what Rohit was saying. What Rohit's saying is, for the most part, is correct. But we have also seen with a couple of NGOs where their source of data comes in only from one source. And they still see the benefits of doing it, because at this point of time, what they've been doing is extracting it into Google Sheets, filing them into Google Sheets, doing the transformations there. So there's a lot of manual work that is involved. So even though it's a single source, because of non-automation of that data going into a warehouse, you still have this problem of people actually having to download data, the Google Sheets, then upload it into one central Google Sheet and having to work with that to generate graphics or visualizations. Again, that's going to depend on your particular use case, how often data gets generated, how much volume of data you have. And so even with a single data source, an organization might find Dalgo helpful. And that will depend on how much of work is being put through that whole pipeline cleaning and automation processes. Not easy to define on overall NGOs, but it'll define on your specific use case and if it makes sense for you, and if you want to get over that manual work that's probably involved now in syncing data, cleaning data, all of those kind of things. So just adding on to what Rohit said.
Thanks a lot. And also, I would appreciate if we can initiate a separate conversation on that.
Absolutely. We can definitely, yeah, definitely we can do that. Just, in fact, I should have your email since you've registered for the call. We'll connect with you. Yeah. That's Prachi at Magic Bus, right?
No, it's Chavi, yeah.
Chavi, sorry. Okay.
Thank you.
Great, anytime. Anything else? Anyone else? I'm just going to use this last minute to get feedback from the folks who have kind of been kind enough to stay until the very end of the call. So here we go, launching this poll. And if you have questions, anything you want to say, you can do that. But also, please do respond to the poll.
Nobody's responding to your poll.
Yeah. Oh, you can see it, huh? There we go. We have one. It requires a bit more qualitative stuff. Thank you, whoever the first person is. As you finish entering the data in the poll, you can feel free to drop off or stay back if you want to chat a bit more. We're here for another 10 minutes, maybe. Yeah. And if you'd like to chat more and you're done with the poll, please go ahead and just shoot the question. Thank you to the 10 folks who have answered so far. Great. Okay.
Abhishek,
I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Hey, Sundar, how are you? Thanks, everyone. If you don't have anything else, feel free to drop off. If you would like to chat about something, please go ahead and stay on. We're here for another 10. Hey, Sundar, go ahead.
Abhishek, I think great job in terms of looking at the wider problem that NGOs face. I mean, the NGOs are also very diverse, right, in terms of being able to in-house host tech support or even afford tech support from external consultants. In that sense, I feel that the middle step over here, I mean, on the first step, I mean, over the years, people have figured out data collection in so many different ways. I think there is a lot of work that also needs to go there because we are quite indisciplined on even that part. I mean, like it's very often to design surveys which are very messy. That's one of the root of the problems. But I still feel that at least the data is structured in some form, so fine. You're able to pick it from Kobo or Glyphic or whatever. And then the third part, we are all totally messed up in terms of visualizations here and there. Things. I mean, like nothing standardized. Somewhere we feel that we need so many things, but actually it's not. There's just few basics which are needed probably everywhere. So what's I'm seeing here in terms of superset probably will be just fine for most of the needs. I think the biggest stumbling block probably the second part. The in terms of usability, and probably it, and that's also the most difficult part also, where I mean there's the making it more user oriented in terms of organizations which do not have much of an internal tech capability. Because then I mean, like you end up spending money on a SaaS, but then you also need to have a tech person. I mean, like it's unsustainable, for an NGO to have a tech person. You have all the whatever of the world, programs of the world, but then yes, we know the problem. So the second part, I feel, is like the crucial one in terms of, I mean, probably keeping the aim not too high. I mean, one cannot aim to do everything that you can do with SQL, but then looking at probably the 3-4 key, data merging or cleaning stuff that we all might need and try to automate it. So that's broadly my suggestion. I think it's a great job that you guys have done, but the second part will be, I think, the key in terms of usability.
Yeah, noted, Sundar. And I'll say two things, maybe three on that, right? First is that, yes, we are aware that not every NGO has that tech capability, data capability to write that, deal with that themselves. They instantly become dependent on someone else. So it's not accessible as they'd like to them, right? And the second thing, and actually on that, ideally at this point, the aim is for it to be a one and done process, right? Though be an accurate reflection of reality. In that sense, NGOs are changing things so often, they might need to do transformation again. But currently that's the idea, right? That you know what you want to have done, you set up those transformations, and then it just keeps running forever. You don't have to touch it too much, right? In that sense, at least that's the rationale. But if I had to speak, and I can speak for myself, not for the team or not as an indication of where the product is going, but if it was blue skies, no limitations, I would see the product as being a step towards just enabling NGOs to access, use data effectively, right? So like anyone from the organization can quickly just come in, understand data in as easy a way as possible, explore it, use it. But that is, I think, far in the future, right? Right now, we're just looking at, hey, these are the foundational problems. Let us address these. Then this is level 2. But perhaps that could be, that is the kind of broad direction.
Being able to access dashboards itself is a,
it's a solid step 1.
Yeah, it's like a big life skill. Just understanding dashboards itself is something, right? So these are all, and that's why the question which I put, you need a translation of that into even the interface, right? Going to a website and looking at a dashboard itself is something, it creates nightmares for many people. I know that, right? So, and that's the user that, one is thinking about. So, a great job and great beginning. I see it is going a very long way.
Thanks, Sundar.
Thank you, Sundar.
Sundar, just an additional point, just more from a historical perspective. I think when we started this out last September, October, me and Lobo had a lot of these conversations related to what you're really asking about. And one thing at that point we kind of pushed off for later was to actually see, hey, let's take the first cohort of 10 to 15 NGOs, see how the data looks like, and is a simple join going to work? And if you were to ask me now, 1 year down, 5, 6 projects down, I'd probably say I still don't have an answer. Because we have seen only probably out of the 6 or 7, I think 1 or 2 could have managed by themselves with simple stuff. Part of it comes from the complexity in how data is collected. So even when we talk about structured data, let's say on a Kobo or let's say on something else, a lot of times data is not necessarily simple. Data is nested across different kind of tables. It takes quite a bit of work on the data engineering side to get to a point where you can say, hey, month over month, what does my metrics look like? And because that's would be our holy grail to say, okay, we've got these indicators now running through and every month I can go in and just take a look at it and I'm done. Have we been able to achieve that easily? I'd probably say no. It's taken a bit of work and just from experience. But I think I see your point, and this was actually one of the things that we really talked about in the beginning. Should we even put that in our initial roadmap? And then we canned it for, let's wait and see a year down the road, first get 10, 15 NGOs to start working on it, and let's look at their data engineering, and then we go from there. But I know where you're coming from. It's been a.
I know that. I think that is more in the, like 200 to 500 or, more. It's more on that scale where you are not involved. Right? I think right now, probably you're going to be so involved that step 2 doesn't matter that much.
Yeah.
Right? Your internal resources would do the SQL for the group. So it's for, but then, it's about what you design for that you end up with. Right? And in most of these projects, you end up having a lot of resource being dedicated at the beginning. So, at the resource tapers down, development resource tapers down over year 2, year 3, then, you can't design for that user later. So it's also important to keep in mind, the user and the limitations of that user. And then how this can be less dependent on the core team in the future. Thanks so much.
Thanks.